All right, guys, it's December 2020. We've had a great string of these video blogs. Everybody seems to like them a lot. We're learning a lot. So we've got a new topic today. We're going to talk a little bit about Windows Virtual Desktop. We brought two of the global, worldwide leading experts in this area to talk to you today. So we've got Keith Goedde, who's the Director of Cloud Services for Velosio. And we've got Daryl Moll, Velosio's Principal Cloud Architect. Guys, let's get right into it. Honestly, I feel like I've heard of Windows Virtual Desktop, but I don't really know what it is. Can one of you kind of fill us in?
Sure. So Windows Virtual Desktop, it's an Azure service from Microsoft that delivers multi-session Windows 10 desktops to end users, which enables them to basically access the same desktop from any device, from any location. So it gives them the ability of having a Windows 10 multi-session desktop from a Windows client, a Mac OS, iOS phone, Android phone, or even an HTML5 browser.
Hey, Daryl, that capability's actually been out for a long time, right? Like what sets Windows Virtual Desktop out, some of the newer features and things sets it apart from some of the other competitors that might be out there?
Sure. So from an economic standpoint, the multi-session portion really drives the economy of how many users you can have on a piece of hardware down or up, so that the economy becomes a little better. And then from a aspect of it being more of a platform offering, it gives the from an IT standpoint, you don't have to deal with any of the remote desktop session pieces or components that you used to have to deal with. So the gateways, the connection brokers, all of that other stuff, all of that is done as a platform, as a managed service from Microsoft. You just have to say, here's the number of users I want, here's the here's the session hosts that I need, and get them connected and configured. So you don't have to worry about the management overhead of all the other stuff that really was a pain before.
And then, so is everything that they're connecting to from a desktop standpoint, is that all hosted in Azure?
Everything is hosted in Azure, yes, and you have different options as far as storage capabilities that range anywhere from gigabytes to terabytes to petabytes as far as scalability goes. So you benefit from having the power of the Azure cloud and the scalability of the Azure cloud.
And then from a security standpoint, would my desktop be shared with potentially other clients in the world, or is it isolated to my organization, or how does the security work at a high level?
So at a high level, there is sandboxing that occurs, and everything is unique to actually that user itself. So even your desktop, even though we're in the same organization, your desktop is different from my desktop. It may be running on the same, if we're on the same session host and we're on in the same host pool, it'll be physically running on the same hardware, but there's the technology that sandboxes each one of our unique instances from each other, from being able to interact other than we would if we were on two PCs on the same network. So you have no access to anything that I have, that's in my virtual desktop, and I have no access to anything that's inside of your virtual desktop.
Okay. You had mentioned a little bit ago kind of accessibility from anywhere, from any device, essentially, right? Have you had a chance to play around with what the experience is like on a phone or a tablet? Is it similar to what I'm getting on my desktop today, look and feel wise?
Just a little smaller, but yes. Yeah, I mean, so from a client perspective, one of the things that I was most impressed about with this is the transparency of whether or not this app is actually installed on my PC or not. So when you utilize virtual desktop, you can push them into a true full desktop session where they're in there and have another window where they have the full desktop. But you can also publish apps out of this, and when you publish the apps and go that route with the published applications, it actually embeds itself into the start machine or the start menu on the computer that you're on. Looks like it's in an app installed on there, and when you run the application, there's almost no discrepancy between what it is when you run, say, Word locally on your laptop or computer and whether or not it's a remote app. So there's no real performance difference or performance lag, and short of the little icon for the Word being a little different, there's no real discrepancy that an end user can tell.
Okay. I mean, so it's certainly a growing and maturing technology for sure. Are there certain use cases or certain types of clients that should take advantage of it or consider taking advantage of it? And equally, are there other use cases where it's not a good fit?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously anybody that has security and compliance regulations that they need to meet, this does, being in Azure and being a solution from Microsoft, you benefit from the 3,500 plus security engineers that they have and the $1 billion, plus a year security budget that they have. You get all the security and compliance regulation standards that you're meeting out of that. So anybody that's in healthcare, financial services, or government or anything along those lines, is really a good fit. It even has the capabilities of doing, high graphics oriented needs as far as like CAD, CAM, and engineering programs, or like photo editing and different things like that. There's different options for stuff like that. From a licensing standpoint, I would say, that's another piece that where people can fit into, because a lot of times the licensing for the Windows Virtual Desktop licensing is something that you may already have owned. So anybody that has an M365 Business Premium, F3, E3, or E5 license, in addition to the A3 and A5 license, which is from the academic standpoint, already owns the rights to Windows Virtual Desktop. So at that point, the only thing you're doing is paying for the compute resources to be able to have the virtual machines in Azure.
So tying that together a little bit with what you said earlier, so it's very possible I might already have the licensing component for it, right? So I'm already paying for that as part of my ORM 365 licensing. And then you mentioned earlier it runs in Azure, so there would just be really the Azure infrastructure related costs plus whatever the licensing I may already have to potentially look to deploy this?
Correct, and then that gives you the ability of having anywhere and anytime access to a consistent desktop that you can have, really simplified IT management and better control over where your data lives. And so you don't have to worry about, the data being on a laptop that's sitting at home and getting stolen out of a car or anything along those lines. So it gives you a lot better control over your data and some of your stuff as far as that goes. Again, you mentioned an M365, so it is specifically Microsoft 365 that the licensing included with, but there is a small, the upgrade to go from Office 365 to Microsoft 365 is, it is a small, increase, but it's not that bad.
Okay. And then around the use cases again, is if I have a highly remote workforce, would this benefit them at all? Is it a hindrance? And then second, you mentioned the security standpoint, but if I've got a large workforce and they're all remote now, and maybe they're having laptop issues or issues on, with the applications running directly on their laptop, is this also a use case for it? Because I've got to imagine that you could essentially build, deploy, maintain the image all inside of Azure remotely for the users to connect into, right?
Correct. Yeah, so you just hit two big use cases right there as far as clients go. Hitting the last piece of that you mentioned there first, as far as images go and stuff like that, you literally your hardware becomes a commodity then, because you're just literally getting something to get a connection where you can view a connection to the internet. And then the same desktop with the same access to data and all of that stuff is all in the same location that it always is. You don't have, it doesn't matter if it's a high-powered PC or a nominal, commodity hardware type of a laptop. Your power is in the virtual desktop that you have out on the cloud. That's the same no matter what device you're accessing it from. In that same respect, the portability of it, or the fact of with a highly remote workforce, it doesn't matter if you're sitting in a coffee shop, doesn't matter if you're at home or if you're in an office. Wherever you're at that you have an internet connection, you can get that same experience and the same look and feel to the desktop that you're looking, that you have when you were in the office, whether you're at home, no matter where you're at, you have that same look and feel.
I assume since everything's running in Azure, it's not bandwidth intensive, but have you been able to play with it? Can you kind of confirm that? For example, would it work off a cell reception on my phone or on my iPad?
If you are comfortable, yeah. So the answer is yes, and I have played with it, and really, as long as you're below 150 millisecond latency on your connection, is really that kind of threshold where you can start getting some, hey, this isn't as great and smooth as I really wished it was. I've been on it on my cell phone and been in parts where, you know, cell reception isn't the greatest and different things like that, and it still works perfectly fine. You have to get to a point where you're about, you know, where you would basically be dropping calls and almost not able to use the internet before you, you know, start really getting performance where you wouldn't be happy with.
Okay, got it. Well, any other findings you want to add to the conversation, Daryl? I know you've spent a lot of time with it, understanding the technology, deploying the technology. You know, we partner heavily with Microsoft. We know this is certainly an area of emphasis for them as well. You know, just any kind of closing thoughts or words around the technology?
No, I mean, I think the only piece that I think we didn't hit on so far as one cool piece of technology is that, you know, while Microsoft is managing all of the, you know, the gateway and the connection broker and all those pieces, one cool piece of technology that they have included with this is called reverse connect. So there isn't any ports open. So when you're making these connections and you do these sign-ons and different things like that, it all happens over port 443 as far as authentication goes. But then any of the connections coming back out of there is a reverse connect technology. So port 3389 is not open. So that security risk of everybody worried about having port 3389 or whatever port you switch that to and different things like that that you do to try to mitigate those risks, it's not an issue with Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop because that port is not even open, and they've utilized reverse connect technology to accommodate for that.
Got it. Got it. You know, one other question actually that came to mind, Daryl, is around patching and maintaining the images. All of that is done, you know, essentially in one place or wherever these are deployed in Azure, right? Is maintaining these images easier, being that they're, you know, kind of all centrally stored and managed versus out in the field on laptops and things like that? Just the basics of backing up, you know, Windows updates and security patches and stuff like that.
Yes. I mean, there's some different ways. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot to get into with Windows Virtual Desktop. A lot more than we're going to get into in this, quick, video here. But it can be depending on how you deploy it. You can go, dedicated personal desktops and even bring in Windows 7 compliance where you get the extended updates for the next 3 years for free. Different things like that are a little, a little bit different as far as that goes, but you can, because of the fact with a typical multi-session Windows 10 desktop that WVD has, it separates the hardware from the operating system from your data. You can just throw a new image on there, and then when they log in, it has their profile attached to it, and they have all their data, and they're on an updated OS.
Okay, cool, good to know. Well, Bill, as always, thanks for having us. We always appreciate it anytime we get to chat about cloud or technology, and look forward to the next video.
Hey, wait, before you go, I got one last question for you.
Okay.
Who calls you and when? I mean, this is pretty great stuff, but you paint a picture like it runs by itself. I probably already own it, and so on and so on. When do we call you guys?
Well, Daryl, I'll give your perspective. Give your perspective. I'll give mine.
Yeah, so I mean, from my perspective, you're going to call us when you're looking to actually do the deployment. Again, there's some nuances in the requirements of what you need on the back end of getting connected for identity management and stuff like that, and knowing how to properly size the the host pools and different things like that, and just walking through the process. It is fairly easy and can be up and running pretty quickly. But for certain, reach out to Velosio on getting additional details and how to guide you down the track, or have somebody take care of it for you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And look, we're shooting a series of these videos. We really want to try to get the word out about cloud, about the importance of cloud, a cloud journey. WVD is one potential step in that direction. So as you're thinking through your cloud journey, and if anything that Daryl talked about today sounds appealing or sounds like it might be a fit, you even just want to talk about it or kick the tires on it, please, reach out to Velosio, and we're happy to help do that. Again, as part of the broader picture of your overall cloud transformation. So as always, thanks again, and we'll look for the next video.
See you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.